I'm the past president of Maury. I don't actually live in the Maury neighborhood anymore. I live a block off of it. I live in Hillary Street. But I'm an associate member, past president. I'm still on the board because I believe in the quality of life of the Maple area, in this whole area, matter of fact. So whatever affects Maple area affects this area too. So I wanted to ask a question. So because we usually have it at St. Andrews, we were worried that nobody would know where to go. So let me ask you, how many know about this from the street signs? Please raise your hand. Okay. How many know about it from the emails I sent out? Excellent, excellent. Okay, and how many know about it from neighbors, word of mouth? Okay, great, great. Well, that makes me very happy. I'm so glad that this many people have showed up. All right, let's start the meeting. Okay, well, let's talk about the people who are the board. So we have Keith Hardy right there, who is the, what are you now, Keith? You're something past president?
President-elect.
What's that?
President-elect, I believe.
President-elect, okay. Pierre was the past president for 2 years. We have our new vice president, which is Robert Strain. And who else is here on the board? Oh, George Jensen back there is doing the treasury. And where's Noah? Noah's back there. Noah's back there. We also have Gwendolyn back there. Who else is here? So one thing I want to point out is that we need board members. Now, if you think that board members is about being bored, no. We meet once a month for an hour on Zoom, and it's actually very rewarding because we find out what's going on in the neighborhood before you all do. And you know, we actually have a voice about how to make sure that a neighborhood keeps the quality that it is, and challenges that we have, et cetera, et cetera. Keith, you want to see anything? Pierre, do you want to see anything?
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Pierre Walker. I'm the former president of Maury. Just want y'all to know we're going to have a peaceful transition here tonight. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you very much. For the past 2 years, I've had the opportunity to work with a bunch of very nice human beings working hard on my behalf and on y'all's behalf. And we wanted to take just a moment to talk about how we won and what we did for y'all. In 2 years, we put a lot of pressure on Tulane. So much pressure that they did keep up their commitment to invest in additional housing, commit to keeping all of their third-year juniors on campus, which has, for the first time in years and years, shown vacancy of apartments in our neighborhood, which means that the D2D developers have overbuilt. There are more availability. They are starting to slow down. So hopefully our neighborhood will remain and retain its originality more than it has been, because we live in one of the safest, best, coolest neighborhoods in the city. We have every economic strata, every race, creed, color. Everybody gets along. When I became president and before, we started to see that we were turning into dormitories and student housing. I hope we've stopped that. We probably still have more to go. Tulane helps us. We are one of the safest neighborhoods in the city because Tulane Police Department has a charter with the city. They patrol our streets. They don't care about us necessarily. They care about their drunken mobile profit centers. However, children, I meant children. So, but they do patrol our streets. So they're an important ally. They're the single largest employer in the parish, I believe. But they have to keep an eye on it. Keith is very good. Susan Johnson, I don't know if she's here tonight. She deserves a lot of credit for working very hard and keeping us abreast of all of the permits. Deborah Howe did a great job. Keith, of course. Richard, of course. The board. We stopped 2 nail salons. I know that doesn't mean a lot, but the beautiful building on St. Charles that is being painted blue is now going to be a gallery of fine photography by Joshua Mann-Palet. It'll be the single finest art photography studio and gallery in the South. He will probably put $3 to $4 million of fine art photography on his walls. So if you've never been to Joshua's store in the French Quarter, he's closing that. He's bringing it here. It'll be on St. Charles. It could have been a nail salon. We approved 2 coffee houses. We haven't seen them come to fruition yet, but one on Broadway, not in our neighborhood, and then one by Snake and Jake's Christmas Club. And they're gonna go in. So we've worked really hard. We haven't bothered everybody with what we were doing. I don't know how many meetings you've been to. I've been to 20 or 30 city meetings and council meetings and planning meetings, and we've argued and won, we've argued and lost. But we've worked really hard. And it's because y'all pay $25 and y'all pay attention. We want to know what y'all think and what your problems are. So please let us know, right? Now, I'm the outgoing president, so I'm taking a break. If you can't reach me, don't call me. Call them, okay? And soon I'll be back. But anyway, mainly, and I'll wrap up, I wanted to thank y'all for the opportunity to serve you and to help us all. And I think we're doing a good job. And all of these people that are board members now, they have a hard road ahead, so be patient with them. These nice ladies in the back from the city, they're not targets. They didn't do anything wrong. They're here to answer questions. Remember, they're doing their job and showed up tonight to answer good questions. We have issues with the city, of course, but the city is functioning. And honestly, no one lives in New Orleans because it's perfect and organized and works all the time. We live here because it's a wonderful, good city, right? So thank you all very much.
Also, another thing about being on the board is that it's challenging, but it's also fun. So that's another thing to consider about being on the board, right? I mean, we wouldn't do it if it wouldn't had some fun connected to it, because we feel like, we're serving the community, and a lot of us like to do that. So, all right. So I just want to go through the agenda tonight. We have Joe DeRusso is going to be speaking. Amy Freeman is going to be speaking. Department of Public Works, Parking Division, Safety and Permits, and Zoning. And we have Elise back there. Elise, you want to stand up? Elise is going to actually introduce these people when we get to them. Elise, what is your official title, Elise?
I'm the district aid liaison for the mayor's neighborhood engagement office.
Okay, and when you come up, she'll speak a little bit about that. All right, so let's welcome Councilman Joseph DeRusso. I imagine this is going to be the last time you're going to appear in front of us, so let's give him a warm welcome.
I'm going to take this out because those guys are a lot taller than I am, number one. Number two, Richard, I have 361 more days, not that we're counting, but we are counting. And I do want to say this, District A has a number of really great neighborhood associations, but I can attest to how engaged your board is, particularly when it comes to zoning and land use issues. There's no group of people who are more invested, both here and in other parts of the district, in that. So I wanted to give them kudos and thank you all for all of your hard work. And I don't know where Pierre went, but you pushed everything along so nicely the past couple of years. Thank you. I'm going to go over a few things I just think in summary for the city. I will talk about a couple of things I think are on the horizon for this year. And I'm happy to answer some questions that people may have. I know the city's here for some other things. For us, the important stuff is always the city budget. These are some of the highlights that really the council pushed more than the mayor's initiatives. And the reason I have them here is obviously because they're important to us. The first is charity has laid fallow since Katrina. And it's really important to us under the right circumstances to get that back into commerce. It's a really interesting thing where Tulane has a piece of it, LSU has a piece of it. And what we're doing right now is starting to fund half of the development of it. Essentially, part of the building will be used for housing and some small retail, and then the rest will really be used by Tulane for their research and to house some of their medical schools and Department of Public Health, et cetera, that they have there. So we're getting that kicked off. I think as you've seen, we, the council, allocated $20 million to the school board because we wanted to get the lawsuit resolved. They had a money crunch. We also gave them money for some other things that are programmatic that are really important to us, like Thrive Kids, which is a partnership with the LCMC that works for mental health with children too. So it was a win-win. The only issue is we're waiting on the lawyers, says the lawyer, to finish the cooperative endeavor agreement to get all the things finalized. We gave some money to more program workforce development. That's sort of typical. The naval station in Bywater also, I don't know how much you all have been following the news, not my district, but has had a number of horrendous problems. We don't need another building collapse or fire, and so this is to really make sure that that money is used because that's supposed to be affordable housing there as well. $2 million for investment of grocery stores in New Orleans East. We hear all the time. There's food deserts in that area, and obviously here there's so many places that are relatively close, either in walking or short driving distance. Not the case in the East. Frequently people go to Slidell to do some of their shopping rather than come even further in. And a lot of these things you may say are not really District A issues, but they're important to the city, and public safety is important to the city, and so we have to be mindful about funding them too, which includes resources to support victims of crime and citywide tires. This is just a very quick, brief slide. I think the number is actually a little closer to 1.8 billion, but I just want people to get a sense of how big the city budget is. There's essentially two different components to the city budget. Essentially, as I think has been highlighted here in blue, that is all of the general fund that we get. So your property taxes, sales tax, licenses, fees, everything you can imagine that we can collect, that we can spend on anything that we want is sort of that blue part of the pie. And actually the larger part of it is everything else. Those are federal dollars, millages, grant applications, so things that are restricted for certain purposes. So for example, if we have a library millage, I can't use that money to fix streets. It has to go to libraries. So that's sort of the difference between the two in those two areas. In keeping with the theme about land use, one of the things that was in place till September 19, 2024 was that we changed the short-term rental rules again. This is maybe the third time that they've been changed, and the second since I've been on the council, that one person could have a short-term rental on their block by right, and then you could apply for up to 2 more as special exemptions. And our view was, let's see what happens and how does all this work out. So 2 things. Number 1, when I first ran for office in 2017, I was and remain philosophically opposed to short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods. I don't like them. I don't think necessarily they belong there. I don't think they fit a lot of times with many characters of many neighborhoods across the city, including places in Bywater and Marigny. Now here comes my but. But in the last 8 years, we've seen insurance rates skyrocket, taxes skyrocket, the cost of everything has increased, and I've had more people come to me saying, I may be forced out of my home if I can't do this and make this work. The other hedge that we put on all of this right now is that either the owner is supposed to be on site for a short-term rental, or they're supposed to have an operator on site, so it isn't running amok where you have a bachelor party and there's nobody who can deal with it in short order. Number 2 is, the plan was for the City Planning Commission to evaluate 6 factors and tell us about those, and then try to have a uniform system in granting or denying these special requests as they came up. However, City Planning Commission, CPC, outsourced that to a third-party company who, A, did not know the geography of New Orleans, and B, were completely inconsistent and sometimes flat out wrong in their assessments. So you would say, well, Joe, give me an example of that. Okay, so one of the criteria they denied somebody on was the owner had a STR violation on this property. yes, true that there was an STR violation, but it was the previous owner who had the STR violation and not the person who was making the application. Well, you can't tack on what happened for the other person to the new owner. They also have lots of issues where a property is close to Tulane and close to Audubon Park, and that's fine, but if you're close to City Park and the amenities closer to City Park Avenue, then that's not fine. It can't be that way. So we once again put a hold on short-term rental regulations because we are tired of the fact that they're not being consistently thought out for us by City Planning Commission and waiting what they say. And parenthetically, we also have a hold on the commercial short-term rental STRs as well. So the proposed amendments potentially could eliminate the CPC process, could limit to 1 STR per block, could do other things with the lottery. We've basically said we need to go back to the well and see what as good an answer as possible is here. And again, the dynamic has just changed economically in the last 7 years. I want to say, again, I know this is a repeat, but I'm still not a fan of these, but I've had too many stories of people saying I'm being pushed out of my house if I don't have something like this. All right, the next thing related to zoning is something called the Future Land Use Map. If you want to be a New Orleans land use expert, that's referred to as the FLUM. All that is a recommendation about how land use potentially could be used in the future, but not necessarily right now. So every few years or so, city planning says we should look at the land use of the city, kind of decide whether or not there are things that need to change, and do we need to do the future land use. This is what I told this neighborhood and my uptown neighbors too. I was going to let any application that anybody wanted to be submitted, but they had to get neighbor approval, and I was not going to do their lobbying, governmental relations, grassroots work for them. You needed to go visit with those people. And I know there's recommendations in place right now. Claire has on here how the process works, that you can approve the FLUM, you can disagree with the FLUM, then it goes back to CPC for an additional recommendation, then we have to vote on it a second time. Candidly, that seems pretty stupid, because if you're against it the first time, then why would I come back and do it the second time? And if I was against it the first time, I can come back and change it anyway, but this is the process and we abide by it. Claire has mapped out on here a number of different places where they have recommendations about changes or no changes at all. You can see 2210 Calhoun, no recommendation. Again, I've told Mari, I've told Arna, I will tell anybody who listens, I am generally agnostic on land use issues, except when the neighbors radically oppose something, then I'm not going to tip the scales like this to try and get to a point to make people unhappy. So if Tulane wants these things, they could have, should have had conversations with the neighbors and asked them to change it. By the way, we don't have included here, but for people who are highly attuned to city planning, a lot of times city planning doesn't have a quorum and doesn't have quite the right numbers to give us a denial or an approval. So things come back to us as no recommendation. I am sick of things coming back to me as a no recommendation. I think it's a cop-out. And as a legislator, I got to vote my machine, yes, no, and defend the reasons why you do it. And I've had to do it many times. And so if city planning wants to say yes to something, tell us yes. If they want to deny it, deny it. But we have legislation that's moving through right now that would remove the no recommendation category, because I just think it's a no man's land. And candidly, I think it's a way to pass the buck to the council and say, well, this is too hot. We don't want any piece of it. And you know, they don't have a constituency because they're appointed. And if you want to serve on city planning, pressure, as my grandfather would have said, be a man and vote your machine. And that's what you should be doing. Pierre already alluded to this, doubles to dorms. This has been quite an odyssey with the neighbors for such a long time. I think Keith, Pierre, Richard, this is like third iteration of where we are, and essentially born out of conversations with so many neighbors. Also should have said Deborah Howell. And this just highlights for you kind of what the parking overlay does. For those of you who maybe are unfamiliar about why we did a parking overlay, it's because there was no easy way to say who is a family under the law. Good luck in the year of our Lord 2025 in trying to define who is a family and who is not a family. And there really aren't a lot of silver bullets, because we studied other municipalities that had this. And candidly, I don't know, for those of you who remember, but I do, one of the early proposals from city planning was, well, you should just allow doubles to dorms and then take a plot of land and let people park there, and then they can walk to where they go. Well, I would like to know where in Maury you could have a lot that is that big to let people to walk to sanction these kind of things. And again, my argument has been even stronger about this is not only commercialization of property, it's commodification of property, because you are taking housing that is intended for people either to be rent or bought for residents or for people who want to live here long term or who want to live near two-lane, and then changing the bones of something so only one class of people can live there, students. And then number two, the way the student housing works is, instead of having a 4-bedroom house and having the space that would be usual, they take it and make it 6, 8 bedrooms and have a common area for everything involved. And so any normal family or roommates would not want to live in that situation. And so you're actually reducing housing and making housing harder as a result. Pierre mentioned crime. Pierre, did you peek at this beforehand, stealing my thunder on everything? This is the crime dashboard from the city. The city council has a lot of information on it. We have a crime dashboard. We have dashboards about jail population. We have dashboards about lights and infrastructure. So this is from 2024, and it shows, it's hard for you to see in the back, but it says data throughout December of 2024. And, this just shows kind of a decline. Obviously, this is not quite right, because it must be part of the year there's no way crime decreased by nearly 30,000%. So we were obviously comparing 1 month of the year with the whole year itself, but it is illustrative of what crime did overall. And I would just say at the beginning of this year, I'm not really getting crime complaints like we did a couple of years ago. So generally, things are much better, things are improved, and we're moving in a good direction. Legislative updates. This one was kind of big for us, and Representative Freeman knows about this. Senator Cathy passed a bill that took traffic camera revenue and essentially did two things with that. It took revenue from the city and split it two ways. If you, like me, have gotten a traffic camera ticket at Palmetto and Carrollton, congratulations, you are now donating to Sewage and Water Board to clean your catch basins. All right? That is where your dollars are going at this moment. So thank you we have 72,000, so we all need to do our part to make sure those get cleaned. By contrast, the money that happens from school zones, so right in front of St. Andrews or in front of Jesuit and Esperanza, that money is to be divided between the school that is closest to the zone and the city. The city, in its infinite wisdom, said, well, divided means 90% for us and 10% for the schools. And then they said, okay, no, we don't really mean it. We mean 75% for us and 25% for the schools. And look, my biggest fear is we don't help people like Representative Freeman, who are doing her level best to help us in Baton Rouge when we do things like that, because it kills our credibility with people who want to stick the knife into New Orleans and who don't want to be our friend. So we passed legislation, all of my colleagues were co-authors on this, that makes the split 60-40 to align with state law. And that way it gets taken care of. Another thing that we passed last year, many of you know about the fact that we had vendors who had not been timely paid. It takes too long to get them to be paid. So we passed a Net 30 ordinance that essentially says if a vendor has not been paid, then they are cordially invited to council chambers to explain to us publicly during a council meeting why the invoice has not been paid. I will say this to you. It has worked extraordinarily well in the 6 months that we've had it there, And candidly, the finance person who's responsible for this is a hard ass. And she doesn't want to hear, if you have a $15 invoice and you didn't pay it on time, guess what? The department head is going to come and explain to the council why that $15 invoice didn't get paid. And I tip my hat to the city for helping with this. And what we're seeing right now is, particularly on the infrastructure side, more contractors and engineers starting to participate because they know that they're getting paid in a more timely fashion. And Claire has in here some of the results. 2024, there were 286 late payments. By December of 2024, 38. So I call this my scarlet letter ordinance, right? You, in a way, that letter publicly. No, people don't like to be embarrassed publicly. I've tried to routinely say this isn't a punitive measure, and this is it. All right, so this is sort of one of the things I wanted to head into the very last part I wanted to talk about, Sewage and Water Board substation. I think everybody here can recite almost better than I can how old the turbines are. Turbine 4, my friends, dates back to World War I. Not to Korea, not to World War II, 1911. So we can't keep on relying on infrastructure that's that old. Turbine 5, for comparison, is a baby at 65 years old, and Turbine 6 is about 20 years old and is doing well. What's going to go at Sewage and Water Board is really a joint effort between the city and the state. The city council has allocated a lot of money to all of this. The $17 million is the most recent, and you will have a new power substation at Sewage and Water Board that will be operational hopefully right at the beginning of hurricane season of 2025, so this year. So if you're like me and you get in the fetal position when you know it's going to be a strong rainstorm because you don't know what the turbines are going to do, you're going to have a newer, cleaner, more reliable power source that has twice the capacity that it needs to run the power for the pumps. And so we don't have to worry, is turbine 4 going to need duct tape or glue this time to keep everything running? By contrast, Claire has on here how much of the money has come from the city, the state. It's a significant amount of money. This is like close to about $300 million all in from all the parties. And there will also be a turbine 7 that will be there as well. And just in closing, there are, notwithstanding what happened on January 1, a lot of positive things are going to happen in the city over the next year. We are going to have the Super Bowl. Preparations are underway for that right now. Mardi Gras looks like, for the moment, that none of the routes is going to be changed. And then we have developments at Sewage and Water Board, which should happen in June. And there will be a ribbon cutting and everything will be associated with that. And then last, we're going to have Hurricane Katrina 20-year anniversary too. And my hope is the city can provide some narratives over the last 20 years of things that have improved as a result. So that's about it for me. I'm happy to answer a few questions. Anytime I see the president and other people get close to me, that means it's about the hook for me. So I'm happy to answer a couple questions if anybody has anything about what I spoke about or other things that are on people's minds. Yes?
In relationship to doubles and dorms, many of them, when they build a double or dorm, they tear into the street. It's happened 3 times that I know of on View Street to tie the infrastructure in, and they leave it a mess. It's just rocks and dirt and rubble. I've emailed you a couple of times and different people in the city. Oh, pass it on to this email to that person, email it to that person. Nothing's done. It's starting to look like work on Bosnia on some parts of the street. This is in addition to all, separate from all the stuff. The Sewage and Water Board's taken years to redo these streets, but this really concerns me that they're tearing up the streets and nothing's being done. They're doing it, not the city.
Yeah, I will say there is nothing more frustrating than being a legislator and not being able to make something, execute on something. Listen, if I had the power to go tell the city, you need to go fill this pothole, you need to go do the work this way, things would be much different. And probably 80% of my emails are related to infrastructure on a daily basis. And that's probably getting about 120, 130 emails a day. And that's not exaggerating the numbers. All we can do is pass it along to the department, ask them to make it an issue for us. And this is what I would also say to people. Please do not hesitate to contact us repeatedly. If you feel like we've just forgotten, in my mind, I've asked the relevant department to go do something about it, and absent hearing from a resident I assume it's in process. If it's not, email me. No. Does that mean email me twice a day? No. Does it mean email me every 3 or 4 days? Sure. Absolutely. And I have no problem with letting us know about that. Please do.
Email you again.
Yeah, email me. I mean, look, I have something on LaSalle Place that took 19 years to fix. Okay? And I mean, I'm not saying that because it's defensible. It's not. I'm just saying the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And at a certain point, what I usually do is break off and say, hey, I've heard from resident Smith 25 times about this in the last 6 months. This isn't going away. Will you please elevate this and make sure it's an issue? So please keep on letting us know. Absolutely. I'll go in order this way. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we live on Maple Street, and it got dug up right in front of our house to put in more drainage and water lines and stuff like that. And then they just shoveled back the dirt and put a lot of gravel in. And now it's just a huge pothole. And when it rains, it fills up with water. It's really bad. And so who's supposed to fix it?
I'm going to let the Department of Public Works people field that one.
Okay.
Look, we had a meeting at PJ's a couple months ago. I can't remember if you were there. It was during the summertime, so it may
No.
not have been. So we had Sewage and Water Board and DPW there. And just candidly, in my view, there was a disconnect between what the neighbors were saying and what the utilities thought the quality of the work was. And it ran the gamut from work's been delayed. We have joint infrastructure work and sewer work that's going on simultaneously, and it's killing us because we can't get around. Contractors who leave trash and debris and Gatorade bottles and all sorts of things in places, things not being restored. And so my hope was that was facilitating a better conversation. But we know on Maple, it's been a problem for like a year and a half now. So I mean, we've gotten plenty of emails and followed up. And in fact, PJ's, the general manager of that store, and actually even the owner of the store, Scott Ballard, the whole brand, has contacted me multiple times. And so that's unusual for a business to get in touch with me that often, which, I mean, and obviously residents do, but when businesses do, not that it raises the profile, but they tend to be not interested in engaging in the same way, that it's an issue. So let's see if we can get that squared away with DPW a little bit later. Yes, ma'am.
I will say that where I live near the corner of Short and Oak, I've witnessed that the city for 3 years kept filling the potholes but never repaving. So the big trucks that come down Oak Street were constantly breaking all the fill, and starting with 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, we couldn't sleep. So I called Councilman, this is a compliment, I called their office and they gave me a name and a number of the company that was in charge of that. They came out and fixed it, and in a short time.
I love that. But look, I mean, I don't want to sound negative. There are positive things that happen too. Since we've hired the contractor for Sewage and Water Board and their billing, it's the first time in 7 years. I haven't had people yelling at me routinely about bills, so that's been a nice change. So there are good things that happen, and I know. But I will say this: I am keenly aware, as your representative who represents this area, Carrollton, Holly Grove, that essentially from Holly Grove down, Claiborne, Parish Line, Leak, Broadway, this area has been under construction for 4 years. And residents here are worn down. And I've tried to tell Energy when they say to me, well, you know, we've lost power one time, why are residents getting so mad? Well, it's because they've been under construction, now they have sewer work, they can't get their kids to Willow, Tulane is back in school, and by the way, their power just went out. So you're the sixth thing that's happening to them at this moment that is frustrating them, and you all have to understand you live in an ecosystem. Can I get to her and come back to you? Is that okay? Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say I live near St. Andrew's School, and we watch maybe once a week, sometimes twice a week, people run the stop signs, and I'm so afraid a child gets hurt one day. There are a lot of tree obstacles.
Well, and you know, a lot of the schools now have started hiring guards to post. I know I take Harrison every day to go to work, and outside of both St. Dominic's and outside of Hines to have guards in both of those places to help direct traffic. Yes, ma'am, and I'll come back to you.
I was just going to say that particularly for those of us who live on Butte, Butte was one that the city did 25 years ago, and they did a great job. It was one of the best streets in Uptown until the last year and a half. With all of
And it
these-
only took 10 months to do Butte Street,
Yeah, it
10
only
months.
took 10 months,
10
but
months.
they did a good job.
from end to end.
But the other thing I want to say is that we woke up 2 mornings in 1 week with no water. If the Sewage and Water Board can send us bills, why can't they send us a notice that they're turning off our water?
Listen,
For
Ray,
7 hours.
There's 2 different issues. If they know they're turning off the water, then they absolutely need to let people know. We've had 2 water breaks, and I'm not sure on Butte, are you affected by the one that was near Louisiana Pizza Kitchen? There was one this past weekend, and then there was one yesterday maybe that shut off water. And then there may be others, but I'm just telling you the ones I'm acutely aware of. And
Water breaks caused by them digging up in the wrong spot?
it could be caused by a million things. It could be caused by digging up in the wrong spot. It could be caused by the fact that the infrastructure is 1 million years old. It could be caused by a contractor, bust the wrong line. In Marleyville, Fountainbleau, when that work was hot and heavy, maybe a year and a half ago, I'm looking back at Holly who was doing that, like, we got probably almost daily emails about how bad it was. So I to their credit, the new general superintendent said we, being Sewage and Water Board, has to do a better job of communicating in a way with residents to let them know both if there's going to be a preemptive shut off of water, but then almost maybe even more importantly, when there's a water break, letting people know where it is, the area that's affected, and how long it's anticipated to last. Hang on, I'm going to go here and then come to you. Yes.
In regard to school zones, on Carrollton Avenue between Claiborne.
Stewart Hall,
Pardon me?
in front of Stewart Hall.
Well, on
Yeah.
Carrollton Avenue between Claiborne and St. Charles, there are several school zones, but they don't all start at the same time now. We got a ticket one's at 7, one's at 6:30, I think one's at 6:10 or something. And so we got a ticket because we're in the school zone we've been going through for years, and it's at 6:30, and we said, wait a minute, this thing doesn't start till 7, and we ran out there, and sure enough, they had changed it. So any way they can notify the city, if someone can send out notices?
It's a good question.
And the lights weren't flashing.
Amy and I just made us, well, a couple of things. All right, so let's start with that. So I want everybody to hear this very clearly. Just said the lights weren't flashing. Because the lights frequently don't work where there's cameras, I passed an ordinance 2 years ago that says if the lights aren't flashing, the city can't collect from you.
Well, then how come the cameras are working when the lights aren't?
Well, that they haven't figured out. All right? You're asking a whole lot here, okay? I did the thing I needed to do so that way I could protect residents. Now, 2 other things, and Elise heard this one earlier at another meeting on Saturday. One is the state law says that the school zones are designed by when school starts an hour beforehand and when school ends an hour afterwards. So that means every school has a different school zone time. And in fact, as I was going to neighborhood meetings, again, this issue kept on coming up. I just drove through my district. It's like, well, this one starts at 7, this one starts at 8, this one ends at 7 or 6 o'clock at night. So you're right, there is. 2, what I'd like to see, and is there already one done or is it being worked on? They have a list. So what I've asked is for the city to put a list online so people can see it. And then you can touch it and know where it is. And there's sort of no doubt about if I'm driving near St. Andrews versus Stewart Hall versus Jesuit and further down where there might be places. I'll take this last question. Yes, sir.
If Doubles to Dorms investors are breaking up city-owned property, why isn't the city citing those developers and charging them or fining them for the reconstruction of the destruction that they caused?
I mean, they should.
Yeah, they should. So my question is why?
Well, I can't
Or
answer
how?
that. I mean, are you saying, I want to make sure I understand the question. You're saying it's a city-owned property.
No. I'm saying that if a Doubles to Dorms investor developer breaks up part of Butte Street,
Right.
3 feet, 5 feet out into
Oh, I
the
see what you're
street.
saying. I see what you're saying.
Why isn't the city going after those developers and fining them or citing them or preventing them from getting any new work permits or something to stop that from happening, or at least address the issue? Because right now, the taxpayers are funding that malfeasance, not on the city's part, but on the
Right, I get
developers'
it.
parts.
I get it. I'm gonna look at Tammy here for a second. Is that on DPW? Yeah. So Tammy, the reason why I'm asking is, and I've been doing this for 7 years, and Tammy will tell you sometimes, like, is this a code enforcement issue? Is this a Department of Public Works issue? So on that, DPW can cite them for breaking up the street and issue a fine as a result of doing that. Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, Khalid, are you aware of any citations that have been issued?
I mean, we do not allow contractors, the minute the permit is issued and they do the cut in the street, we have an inspector in-house who makes sure that the job is complete. The only cut that we cannot oversee is like related to water or sewer, and it's sewage and water board related cuts.
But does that include asphalt?
Asphalt, concrete, even the curb or the sidewalks.
So it doesn't sound like it's being done.
So send me the address, I'll look at it.
I've sent pictures, information, I've talked to Joe, he's passed it on to Department of Public Works. Y'all got it.
Okay.
Yeah. What's the address? So I can forward it again. What's the address?
Of what?
Of the
Not
cut.
just one.
No, I don't know that. I got it. You guys have been clear.
The whole 7,300 block of Butte.
Okay.
And the 7,700 block of you.
7,300 and 7,700 blocks of youth.
Right.
Everything from Adams to
Yeah.
Pine.
Got it. All right. Khalid, 7,300, 7,700 blocks of youth.
Which one?
Butte. B-U-R-T-H-E. Butte. Lower. Yeah.
Lower Huntington Roadway on Butte.
Okay. Very good. Yes. Right. I want to make sure everybody heard Tammy's point as I wrap up, which is if DPW has cited and the problem remains and they haven't paid the fine, so both, you have to do both, then safety and permits won't issue the certificate of occupation. So like the sine qua non to get safety and permits involved is to make sure DPW does it. And you've got DPW here tonight, and I will follow up again either tonight when I get home or in the morning on those 2 blocks. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Great seeing everyone. Take care.
I just want to say that Joe comes to all of our Zoom meetings, and he is probably one of the best things that's happened to our district. He is a hard worker. We're very lucky to have him. We know how hard he works, and we just hope that the next person who does his job is as good as he's been. So, all right, now I'm going to introduce Representative Amy Freeman. Amy.
Hi, everybody, and I don't have as much of an update as Joe because obviously state issues are different, but really still very, very important to all of us. But first of all, before I kind of go through my little list, many of you have reached out to me. I know many of you know I've been in treatment for cancer, and some of you are cancer survivors, and I just want to thank each one of you who's emailed me, dropped something on my porch, mailed me a card. Like, it has meant a tremendous amount to me and my husband, who's standing in the back of the room. He walked in a few minutes ago. Because it's been a journey, but I got a pathology report last week that I'm officially no residual cancer on that pathology report, which those of you who are cancer survivors know how huge that is. So I still have some treatments to go. I start radiation next week, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not done, but yet I'm moving in all the right directions. So I really, from the bottom of my heart, am so appreciative of all of the people who've reached out, specifically this neighborhood, since this is the neighborhood I live in day to day, So appreciate you all so much. So I kind of made a quick list of things, and since Joe talked a little bit about sewage and water board, I recently, early December, the Speaker of the House from Eunice, Louisiana, Philip de Villiers, who's our speaker, not to be confused with the actual speaker from Louisiana who's up in DC. But Philip deVilliers was doing district tours. And one of the things I did with him is go to the Sewage and Water Board because he sat on the Ways and Means Committee for 2 terms before he was the speaker. So I really wanted him to see the progress of what's happening there. And what I will report to you as of, I think it was there December 7th or 8th or something like that, you can see that that electrical station is getting ready to be tested. I'm meeting next week with Steve Nelson, who is, what's his title, Joe? Just the CAO? General Superintendent. So he and I are going to sit down and talk a little bit further about what's going on there. But it is hopefully going to be tested and online, they told me, by July 31st, if not earlier. So let's hope they're telling the truth. And I will keep bothering them, but I will tell you it's really important that people like the Speaker of the Louisiana House, Philip deVilliers, who's from Eunice, Louisiana, sees that with his own eyes and knows that that money is being spent properly from the state investment. And although I know the majority of our district is not in agreement with Jeff Landry on a day-to-day basis, I will tell you that the governor has been very committed to getting that Sewage and Water Board where it needs to be going. And then a couple of you mentioned, water being out. That happened to me twice on my blog. I will tell you, people are afraid sometimes to text or call me on Sewage and Water Board stuff. I have no problem calling Steve Nelson and saying, this is the address that doesn't have water. Why not? So those of you, most of you have my mobile number. If you don't, it's, Robert is here from my office, but I'll also tell you it's 504-451-2503. You can text me and say, I don't know why my water's out, because that happened to me in November and I didn't know why my water was out. And then it happened again, the second week in December. And it was because they were doing a test on a system and they didn't know the 700 block and the 600 block of Fern were impacted by the test until I actually called them. So that frustration that we all have with the Sewage and Water Board, part of it is the old pipes that exist, and sometimes they think they're testing a certain section, and then that test extends other directions that they don't know until it actually happens. And I'm hoping to, one of the things I'm going to talk to Steve about is hosting my town hall meeting in March and having Sewage and Water Board there, because that's a state entity, and I think all of us really care about what's happening there. So I'm going to try to get that date. It'll be obviously with Mardi Gras being March the 5th this year, or the 4th. Yeah, it'll be after that. It'll be a couple weeks after Mardi Gras, and we'll get the word out. If you're not on the email list, I think Robert put something by the front door. Robert, my legislative assistant, is here. You can always just click on the state website and send an email to him and say, please add me. I'm not a huge social media person, but when I do have a meeting or something, I try to announce it on there. I don't know about everybody else here, but the more social media exists, the less they want to touch it. But anyway, but nonetheless, that is a good way to get the word out. And we do try to put flyers at all the coffee shops when we're trying to host a town hall, which we didn't have one last year because Jeff Landry had us in session starting in January all the way through June. He kept a special this and a special that. So I really wasn't here a lot until session ended and I found out I had cancer. So I was and then I was here a lot. So nonetheless, I just wanted to make sure you all know that I am looking to have a town hall meeting that would be more focused on state issues. Even with the new governor, I feel like I had 2 really nice successes last year. I was able to pass a law that the governor signed that stops, and it was because a cancer advocacy group came to me. It's to deal with genetic testing, because so many of us now get genetic testing to find out if we are prone to cancer. Well, life insurance cannot raise your premiums because your genetic test says that you're testing positive for certain types of cancer, and that was signed into law last year. And then the other one that really didn't get a lot of press, and Jeff Landry didn't sign it, but it became law on August 1st without his signature. And that is no prior authorization required for perimenopause and menopause treatment for women. And a bunch of doctors came to me and said, this is so annoying. Some things are covered, some things aren't. We can't. So I worked actually across the aisle on the Senate side to get the no prior authorization required. So if anybody is going to the doctor or knows somebody going to the doctor and they're refusing coverage, it's actually against the law, so you can fight that in a different way with your insurance. Now, this is only for perimenopause and menopause coverage of those kind of hormones and non-hormonal treatments that people take. Although it definitely gave me some ideas about other no prior authorization type bills. Evidently they have one in Texas. A lot of my Republican colleagues like what they do in Texas. So sometimes I go to them and I say to them, well, they do it in Texas, so we should do it here. So, because obviously our district is one of the more liberal districts in the state, so we're not gonna get our way on everything, but where we can, I try to serve us well up there. And again, I always say this every time I'm in a group at a neighborhood meeting or anything, I welcome anybody to come up and follow me around for the day and see what it's really like up there. Some of you do come up there for different various reasons. Some of you, volunteer your time to come up there. But, it's a very different world than the world we live in here in New Orleans. Joe has come up there with me before to try to help me on things when we have to work on legislation to change a fine or fee structure that has to be done at the state legislature, even though it's a city fine or fee. I believe that has something to do with a governor many years ago who wanted control over New Orleans. So there are certain things we have to do as a city to be there, but again, I welcome anybody to email me, text me, tell me you're coming up for the day, because it's always nice to have friendly faces in the Capitol when you're working. And then this year coming up is a fiscal session, so I'm limited to 5 bills that are non-fiscal. Oddly enough, for 2 years in a row, 2023 and 2024, I passed some really instrumental cancer bills that both got signed into law, one by John Bell Edwards, one by Governor Landry. I'm actually looking at some more cancer bills because those seem to be bipartisan, and now that I've had my own experience with cancer treatments, I'm seeing what's not covered and what should be covered for patients. So but also there's other ideas that you may have. So feel free to email the office. I think, Robert, you said you put some cards by the door. But again, you can always just go to the website, click on my name, and send an email. Let me see if I forgot anything. Oh, and I guess the only thing I forgot, which I was not at the tax special session because I was in the final days of my chemo treatments. However, not being there counted as a no, and I'm pretty confident there might have been only one bill that y'all would have wanted me to vote yes on, because most of it was, let's figure out how to restructure the taxes so everybody has to pay instead of the businesses that probably should be paying. And it was a very much of a smoke and mirrors session. And those of you who are tax attorneys or CPAs would understand it way better than I would, but I was keeping my pulse on what was happening by, at least talking to my colleagues. But it went really fast, and it seems to me that Jeff Landry got everything he wanted because he strong-armed a lot of people into his viewpoint by threatening them. But I wasn't there for that, so I didn't have to be threatened, and I'm not sure that he would. He's politically astute enough to know that he doesn't really have a lot of say over District 98, so we're pretty well protected from him trying to strong-arm me, or if he tried, I would ignore him. But so any questions for me? I mean, I know I do have the town hall coming in March, but if there's anything off the top of your head, that anybody wants to ask, I'd be happy to try and answer. Sure. Wait, I can't hear you, I'm sorry. Oh, the smart meters with Sewage and Water Board? They're going around, but I don't know the plan, and that was part of my reason for meeting with Steve next week, Steve Nelson. I'm sure Joe knows more about the smart meters than I do.
140,000 meters in the city, roughly half have been installed right now. The rest are supposed to be installed before the end of 2025.
But, have there been any issues, or I was just curious.
The only, there's been 2 issues I'm aware of. One is sometimes the contractors don't install them correctly. There's a water leak. We've gotten more of those than I would like, but they say it meets the percentage average. And then there was one whoops where a whole bunch of meters detected water leaks where there were no water leaks, and they fixed that in a relatively short period of time. But I've actually gotten people who've said, I had a smart meter, it's a detected leak, we hired a plumber, it was right, and it saved me a lot of money. So starting to see that change.
I have a building in 2124 magazine. They put the smart meter in, and I have 5 units, and one of the units didn't have water. So the plumber came in and he said, well, we have trash in the lines, and he spent $800 and something fixing the lines.
I don't know what you say, we don't control sewage and water board, and you have to have the smart meters because the billing problems have been so bad. I mean, I just like, I will tell you until we hired this contractor that I probably spent 20% of my time dealing with people who said, my bill has been X and blah, 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 and it's been 3 years now. So the smart meters are really the only way to get that fixed. And I will say to you, there have definitely been, I acknowledge, there have been hiccups. There have not been perfect in any stretch of the way making it happen.
Anybody else? We will try to get sewage and water board at the town hall meeting. That is part of the agenda. So you can ask more of those questions when I have them. And you can email us.
Thank you, Amy. We're very lucky to have Amy as well. She's a really hard worker and she does a great job. So next we have Elise Williams. Elise is our representative in the city, and she's going to explain a little bit about what you do. And she's going to introduce the people from the Public Works and from the city departments.
Good evening, how y'all doing? As Mr. Bienvenu said, my name is Elise Williams, and I serve as the District A liaison for the Mayor's Neighborhood Engagement Office. And our goal is to connect you guys to city departments to help get your quality of life issues resolved. And we do that in a number of ways, and the closest way to home is right at Nick's Library. I'm there every Monday, 10:30 until 5. Not this Monday because it's a holiday, but as long as that library is open on Mondays, I will be there. And you can come in to get an update on a concern that you've already reported to a department or to 311, or to make a new report. Or if you just have a question for a department and you aren't sure which department the concern should be addressed to, feel free to come on by. No appointment needed anytime. I'm there. Additionally, I have 2 other locations. Tuesdays, I'm at the Life Transformation Center in Holly Grove. And then on Wednesdays, I'm at Smith Library. You can also make a virtual appointment. I have cards at the back. You don't even have to make an appointment. You could just call me with your concern. Additionally, District A will be having a coffee on your corner at 8540 Spruce Street. I have flyers in the back. And we'll be focusing on streets and drainage in District A, and Sewage and Water Board will be there, as well as the Department of Public Works. And that will be February 20th. So it will be ahead of Representative Freeman's meeting, but it's during the day at 10:30. So I encourage you to come out, sit down, and talk with the city department leaders to get your concerns resolved, especially regarding the questions that you have for Sewage and Water Board who are not able to attend tonight. I'll also be at the back of the room, so if you have a specific concern for Sewage and Water Board, I'm happy to take that from you and liaise with the department. Grab that in a moment. So now I'm going to bring up DPW's parking division. They're here to address questions you have about parking in the neighborhood. And then we also have Dr. Khalid, who is a project manager with DPW, if there are any road-specific questions. If you have questions about a specific address that any of the departments who are present are not able to answer, I'm happy to take that question and follow up with the right representative from the department who may not be here, or if it's a question for a department who is not present tonight. So Ms. Katrina Kraft with DPW is here. You can come on up. As well as Ms. Arlette Johnson, Ms. Wonder Harris, and Ms. Valerie Petty.
Good evening, everyone. So we're from the Department of Public Works, the Parking Division. My name is Valerie Petty. I am the parking administrator. I have with me my team here, Katrina Kraft. She is our division manager. We have Ms. Arlette Johnson. She's over meter and signage. And we have Ms. Wanda Harris, who's over enforcement. So we're here to help you guys and answer some questions.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you want to get money from tickets, come to the corner of Plum and Lower Line.
We enforce that block on
Please
7300 block of Plum and 1300 Lower Line. We make sure we get those two blocks every day because we get no one's up.
Yeah, we get calls for that location and we make sure we're there.
Historically, I've had trouble reaching anyone after hours, and frequently in the neighborhood where I live, the parking problems start at about 5 or 6 on Friday and they continue on, all day Saturday. I've tried to get the Tulane police involved. They will not do anything with parking. I've tried to get the New Orleans police involved, but they don't want to have anything to do with parking. One time I succeeded in getting a New Orleans policeman to come by, and he didn't give a ticket to a car. He took out a piece of notebook paper and wrote a note and put it on their windshield.
We won't do that. So we noticed that that parking enforcement kind of has shifted to the times and nights that you're talking about, Friday and Saturday night, which we have our nighttime engagement, right? Don't we have that in office, nighttime engagement office, nighttime economy. So we noticed that parking enforcement is really high at that time. Do you have our 24-hour number?
No.
You don't have Katrina's number?
24-hour number is 504-658-8100.
And if we call that number, what can we expect to happen?
You can expect for someone to answer, and you can give them the information where you need enforcement. We'll get someone out there.
How soon will someone come out? Like if someone's blocking my driveway, and I can't get out.
Okay. It depends on if they have any roads ahead of your call.
Okay.
So I can't give you a ETA on that.
But it would be within several hours or so.
It should be within an hour. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A lot of people don't know that you have to be 15 feet from a crosswalk, and the streets in Carrollton are not marked appropriately. They should be marked so that parking people that aren't familiar with that rule and regulation should know that they can't park. When are y'all going to mark the streets?
Yes, 20 feet away from a crosswalk.
20 feet?
Yes.
See that? It's even more.
Yes.
And at the corner near the school of St. Andrews, Sharton Cove, all day long there are illegal parking that way. You can't even see when you're at the stop sign to come. There are lots of traffic accidents right there.
What's that location?
Short and Oak. Excuse me. Yes, Sharton Cove. So the 8,000, between the 8,000 and 79,000, St. Andrews Episcopal is right there on the corner.
I'm wondering, we've been talking a lot about all the potholes, especially from the construction. A lot of times what I'm noticing as I'm driving around the neighborhood is that there'll be a huge pothole or some road construction on one side of the street or the other, and the people parking nearby that pothole will prevent you from being able to continue through the street. So for instance, a huge hole dug by a utility company, and somebody parks on the other side of the street, so the one passable lane within 2 or 3 feet of it. Now technically they're not breaking the law because, I mean, I don't know, maybe they are, that's my question. Normally they would, without the hole there, they would have been parked legally, but now that there is a hole there, they're blocking us from passing through. Is there anything we can do about that? Because sometimes it really does just completely stop traffic in our narrow neighborhood.
Yeah, call her in to 311 so that we can get someone out there from roadwork. Yeah, someone from roadwork NOLA needs to come out there and look at that. But unfortunately, they're not in a violation.
Even if the other cars can't pass around them?
Yeah, they're just being selfish.
Now, they park on both sides, on Lower Line and on Views. You know, that area that is lots of potholes, and the students are there. We have 4 houses that have bedrooms for students, and the 4 of them with the garbage and the recycling is in the middle of the street with the potholes, you know, going in. And they park, we have big vans, and they park a foot away from the curb and just on the corner and on both sides. So to go through, you just have to go straight and go slowly between the two. If it's a truck, they have to, you know, take them through, and that takes a long time for the truck to pass, and you have a long, between the potholes and those 2 cars that are really on both sides, that are, it's not misparking, it is, you know, 1 foot from the curb, you already take away from the street, and you have a big car. You know, I have a small car, and I have to go very slowly, but I have very small. If it's a truck, they stop in the middle, and they get the truck through. It takes about 5 minutes sometimes for the truck to pass through.
And what street is this?
On Youth, between Lower Line and Broadway.
Sounds like they're reducing the road work like the lady back there, having the same problem.
Yeah.
So we can take a look at that as well.
There is also misparking. They read the stop sign, and when they are, you just have, if you want to turn right coming from, going to, from Carlton to Broadway, you have to just go straight into the street to avoid, because both of them are on the corner.
Okay. Well, we can definitely have someone to enforce them that's parked on the corner, and we can have them towed away.
And we'll pay this down and then
20 feet of the intersection?
I can't hear you.
If you're within 20 feet of the intersection,
That's correct.
you can be towed away.
You can be towed away. Yes.
But now for the students, you know, who is supposed to just make sure that they have permits?
Who's there to make sure that they have permits? They have to come to our office and apply for a permit.
But is there any enforcement? I don't know who is, now you don't have anymore a permit on it, so you don't know who has a permit and who doesn't.
In other words, we don't know who to call to say there's someone without a permit.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, they're license plate recognition now.
Yeah, so.
So, of course, you don't know who has a permit and who doesn't, who has one and who doesn't.
And Tulane is not really doing that job, I'm sorry. The trash it moved from Ferret, it was between Ferret, on Lower Line, between Ferret and Youth. Now it turned out between Lower Line and Broadway. The trash cans are in the middle of the street. And the students said, well, it was in the middle of the street. I said, hey, said, it's our trash can. I said, the garbage collector emptied it and not to take it and put it inside. She didn't know. So when you don't know, and you have 4 or 5 apartments, and all of them have 4 students, and they are all Tulane students. They opened their, and now they just moved in, and the number of cartons are so big, they don't even pull them or put them, they are just, you know, in the middle of the street.
Well, that is a sanitation concern. DPW wouldn't be, and parking enforcement definitely would not be able to address that. However, sanitation, they regret that they were not available to attend tonight, but if you have a specific address that you're having difficulty with the maintenance of the trash can, sanitation will send the sanitation ranger for District A, and there's only 1 per district, but he did say he would send them to inform the residents of what the policies are for moving the trash can in. I'm sorry?
That's too late. Tulane used to take care of that, and it's not anymore.
Well, we can only engage sanitation and request for the sanitation ranger to come out and inform the resident, either the renter or the property owner, of the practices with the trash can, which we can do, and I'll be at the back to collect the addresses if you have a specific address for sanitation.
Yes, go ahead.
You want to test it?
Yeah, testing.
Mardi Gras is around the corner, and what is associated with parking at Mardi Gras time in this neighborhood? Motorhomes.
Yes, sir, that right there.
Why motor?
Is that going to be tolerated? Are you going to nip it in the bud before it even begins?
Oversized vehicles, yes. Yes. And when y'all see that going on, area code 504-658-8100.
And if no one knows about this, you know what the fine is per day for a motorhome? $500 per day.
Yes.
What's troublesome about it is when it's over an entire 3 days or a week, they're not plugged into sanitation, but they're using their toilets, and they normally park next to a subsurface drain. That's wrong. Thank you.
Are pods, you know, the pods that some people use where they store things on the street, the big, are those legal? Do you have to have a permit or?
You have to have a permit.
They do? Okay.
Yes.
Does it have to be displayed or?
It's supposed to be displayed, yes. Supposed to be taped to the pod, yes.
Is the term meter maid politically correct?
Parking enforcement officer.
How many parking enforcement officers are in the city?
About 50.
About 50?
Yes.
Would it be something to consider to park one of those parking enforcement officers at the two-lane police substation at Zimpel and Broadway for 40 hours a week? You choose which hours are best, but from what you're hearing here, there's a lot of bang for the buck of putting someone there, and all they do is walk around the neighborhood and cite cars or boot them or get them towed away or whatever. Could that be considered?
We have 4 up here now.
Sorry?
We have 4 in the area now, Monday through Friday. And they ride around Saturdays and Sundays.
Are they in marked car? Has anybody seen this?
I heard it, yeah. I heard it, yeah. They're out there. They see us.
They see us out there. And I'm quite sure some of them have seen me out there riding as well.
Well, speaking of the stretch of Zimpel between Lower Line and Pine, which was mentioned earlier, there is always a big black truck that's parked right there on the corner on the St. Charles side, and it's to turn left onto Zimpel from Lower Line is an adventure, and then getting through that stretch of Zimpel is an adventure. And I never see any tickets on any cars in that area. Also on the corner of Oak and Pine, 1200 Pine, there's a fire hydrant there. And there's always a car that's parked within about 5 or 6 feet of that fire hydrant. And that is never ticketed.
We'll be there tomorrow.
There is a fire hydrant on Views between Pine and always people park there in front of the fire hydrant.
100 block.
Views. Between Lower Line and Pine. That area, yeah.
We'll be there tomorrow.
And they park on both sides, big, a Lower Line just close to View. So if you are coming and want to turn into Lower Line, you do the same thing. Yeah, you just have to go straight so you want.
We'll be out here tomorrow.
Mr. Hardy.
I have a question. I'd like to know whether you have authority over party buses. You know what the party buses are? And particularly whether you have power over the parking of party buses. Because what's happening now is that these party buses come in, They load up with Tulane students, and they go to what used to be the Katzenbestoff right across St. Charles here, and the city, because the city changed the law, that used to be that liquor stores were different, and they said, no, liquor stores are just just retail. So if you can have retail in a location, you can have a liquor store. And this guy came in and said, oh, well, I'm going to have a market. And it turned out it wasn't a market. I told him, I said, no, I know these people that are coming in to do this project. They don't do markets, they do liquor stores. And sure enough, it became a liquor store. So now, the party buses, which is another problem in this neighborhood, because there are these buses, they're these really raggedy old buses, they look like they came from some rural parish in Louisiana, and they're painted colors, and I don't see how they pass and get an inspection sticker. So these buses load up with Tulane students. A lot of them are underage. They get out here on St. Charles Avenue. All of them have got music pumping out. Boom, 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 boom. They got lights going on. You've got kids that look like they're 13 years old going into this liquor store, coming out with bottles, getting back on there. And these parking buses are parked there right on St. Charles Avenue for 15, 20 minutes playing music. And I'd like to know, if you don't have jurisdiction over them, who does and who licenses them and what we can do to them, and if you got any suggestions about what we can do about the liquor store that was supposed to be a market, I'd appreciate that too. So it's just a combination. Alcohol and student populations do not mix. There's tons of sociological literature that shows that when you have the more alcoholic beverage outlets you have near a college, the more binge drinking you have. And we certainly have a binge drinking problem at Tulane.
So the party buses are enforced by our Grounds Transportation Bureau, and that is a part of Department of Public Works. Their number is 504-658-8000. So the party buses are not allowed to operate on the streets of New Orleans. And we've been in sweep operations where NOPD has taken people off the party buses and have confiscated those party buses. So if you see that happening, you need to give us a call. GTP, we're parking enforcement.
So are you telling me that those buses are completely illegal?
They are illegal. They're supposed to have proper permits to operate, and most of them do not.
Okay.
Somebody mentioned the problem with signage that's missing on, because of all the streets that are being repaired and everything. Is it illegal for a citizen to help the city out and do the yellow painting that's no longer there? Is it illegal?
Yes, illegal, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's illegal, but...
You gotta be calm.
Use chalk.
We didn't hear the question.
She asked about residents helping with the paint on the ground, the striping. But thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. Y'all answered so many questions. Thank y'all. Dr. Khalid, would you like to come on up?
Thank you, ladies. God bless you.
Dr. Khalid
Thank
is
you.
here to take any general questions you guys might have about street repairs. He is not Sewage and Water Board. However, we're going to be brief. That way Director Tammy Jackson can talk to y'all as well.
I work with DPW. I'm project manager over there, senior design engineer. We have a lot of, reconstruction, full reconstruction, especially in District 8. I think District 8 have the majority of the fund that was spent between Sewage and Water Board and Department of Public Work. They spend a lot of money here. Right now, DPW does not have any active projects because we hold off from DPW until Sewage and Water Board come and finish all their sewer work, because they have to be done by July of 2025. Otherwise, EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, will be start issuing violation for them, and it's a lot of money per day. So that's why Department of Public Works is not issuing any kind of construction right now in the area here, around here. The only one I think is RR 216, which is around Adams Street, all the run to Adams. That's the only active project under the JIRR. Every other project that you see is really sewage and water body projects. And I hear somebody saying cut off the water or something like that. By the contract, by the specification, it's supposed to be in all the residents. I mean, the sewage and water body crew comes and they try to do a closure, make sure the valve is working, and it takes 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And then the day they want to do a tie-in, the water line, the new water line with the system, that's when it affects you like for 8 hours or 6 hours until the contractor finish. But it's the contractor responsibility to put the flyers for all the houses that are going to be interrupted or have no connection for water supply 72 hours in advance. So, but again, you know, if you have any question related to work, and again, you know, for the future, like Mr. Councilman Joe Gerudo said, Sewage and Water Board took over the drainage and catch basin effective January 1st, 2025. Yes, sir.
Yes, Perrette Street was repaved very well between Oak and I'm sorry, Oak Street was paved.
Yeah.
All the way from Broadway to Carrollton. Now it's torn up to 7 places, 9 places in the street. Between those 2 streets have been torn up. So people make mistakes, and that happens, but no, there's been a little repair on Oak Street in the last week. But generally, nothing's happened.
If you could send me the block number, like you have a block, specific block
Every
number?
block.
Every block for in Oak?
No,
8,000 block of Oak.
Okay, Sewage and Water Board, they have sometimes, like when they do video the line, they put a CCTV through the sewer line, and they kind of see if there is any damage. So if they notice any damage, they do point repair, meaning only like the house connection or the pipe failure. So they do like a replace about 10, 12 feet of the sewer line, and then they put a gravel. And then they continue to the next point. Maybe that's why you see a lot of them. There is a lot of bunch point repairs, we call them. And the contractor cannot pave because they have to come back again and put a CCTV the line again. Make sure it's clean from manhole to manhole, everything is good, and then they come and do a liner. It's a material that they put it with about 300 degree Fahrenheit, and they put it through this liner, and it'll become another wall inside the little new old pipe. So you get a brand new pipe for almost, it should last 50 years. So that, but the only problem, be honest with you, I'm going to be honest with you, is that we don't have a lot of contractor who does, you know, lining. Very seldom, like 3 or 4 company, and they all overwhelmed.
no paving. When are they going to pave?
They will pave as soon as the video camera shows that it's ready to be paved. It should not, but it should not take more than 2 months.
Oh, it's been a year.
I know, because I'm telling you, I have a problem trying to get somebody to do the line for almost 8 months, because really the contractor is just overwhelmed. It's only like a BLD does it, another contractor from Covington, Mandeville area.
So I have 2 questions, really. We live in the 600 block of Pine, and we're notified, I don't know, 2 weeks ago they would be doing a project. A contractor put up signs that I guess it was sewer lines, and this company did a great job. Actually, they were very clean. They had good weather. They cleaned up everything in the afternoon, and they're finished. But when I talked to the contractor when it began, he said that within a week of completion, they put gravel and aggregate on top, that someone will come by and put a permanent cover.
Yeah.
So how likely is that to happen? And who comes back and puts the permanent cement or asphalt over the hole?
It's the same contractor unless you have a subcontractor working for them, but the contractor is the prime responsible. I don't care if he has like a free subs or anybody, he's still, you know, his contract is with us or with the sewage and water board.
So his people are gonna come back and put it over?
Yes.
Okay. The other question I have is, I have friends who live in different parts of the city, one on Pritchard Place, which is outside of our area, but it's like 8 blocks from maybe Leonidas to Carrollton Avenue, and they're different, like there were 2 blocks of Pritchard that were dug up and put concrete, really beautiful job. But then that was the end of their contract. The rest of Pritchard, all the way to, almost all the way to Carrollton, is all just mud, and they say, well, that's a different contractor's job. Why are there different contractors?
If it's related to the joint infrastructure program, that's mean maybe like they did some work, but I don't remember in Pritchard that DPW did. I could look it up for you and see who done the work and see what's the future coming for the remaining of the blocks.
I guess my question is, why were contracts let to different contractors when one could have done the whole street?
I agree. I mean, the whole, it should be the whole run. It should not be divided like what you're saying now. Unless, like it's, for example, a sewer repair was done from certain manhole to certain manhole, which is one intersection to another, maybe that's the case. And another one from another intersection, or maybe like they did a replacement for the water line. But if you give me the address or send the email to her, I promise you I'll look into it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So did I understand you that the road work after all of the sewage and water board work in our area is done, that won't start until July?
All of the area, the only sewer work we have is still remaining is really in District 8. Uptown, up Carrollton Basin, that's what they call it, Carrollton Basin neighborhood, and it's supposed to be all the sewer repairs, whatever sewer they need to fix, is supposed to be done by July of 2025, which is 6 months from now.
And in the meantime, we continue to travel on roads that we can't, are almost unnegotiable.
No, the contractor is responsible to put aggregates and make sure that you have access to your driveway. If you see that issue is not being addressed, please send us an email, and we'll have to reach out to Sewage and Water Board if it's their contract.
Just check out 4 blocks of view.
Okay?
Or Adams.
Adams, I know there's a whole full reconstruction in Adams. I think it's the 1100 all the way to St. Charles. Yes.
So RNGP is the contractor for Adams Street?
Yes, Ringgate.
And what are the vibration monitoring requirements in their contract?
Is the contractor supposed to be providing vibration monitoring?
When? How often?
I mean, if you, for example, if they, you know, they go in too deep and they have to be hammering a lot and it might affect the property, maybe that's when they're supposed to be putting anything. But if you do not have somebody, or like you see like your house is shaking or whatever, you know, your property, you could reach out to DPW and we could have our testing lab go and set up the vibration monitoring to make sure.
What I'm asking is, under their contract, are they supposed to have a vibration monitor on site? What are the details of the contract that they're required to fulfill?
They're supposed to be, you know, responsible for all the vibration monitoring in the contract, yes.
Every day they do it?
They should be doing it if they feel like there is
I
a...
have never seen a vibration.
You know, sometimes, for example, you have a right-of-way maybe like 50 feet or 60 feet the street. Maybe you have 18 feet. And they dig in deep. In the 18 feet, they should really get you a vibration monitor. Okay. If the width of the street is small, narrow.
I can get a copy of the details of the contract required.
Okay, I could...
Because frankly, your answer is very vague to me. I don't understand when and where they need to be there and how often and what's required for them under the contract.
That's because Dr. Khalid works with JIRR projects, and that is a CERT project under Sewage and Water Board, so he would not be able to detail. We can, but if, I'm gonna give you my card, and we're gonna follow up with you, on any specific addresses, and yours included, okay?
One more question.
Okay, all the road construction going on, and there's lots of sand and dirt spilling into these side streets. I see projects that are done, but they're still full of sand. And in my street on Butte, because I'm right off Adams, it's constantly coming in on Butte Street with the sand. Who's responsible for cleaning all that up? I look at some other streets, and they're finished, but they're still covered with so much dirt, it's like the Old West.
I mean, the DPW inspector or the engineer inspector is supposed to make sure that is all this dust are removed as soon they're done with the block. They should be sweeping it and cleaning it up.
They're not doing it.
Just again, you know,
Our guys did.
if you send an email, I'll make sure it goes.
Does anyone see the street sweeper in our area? No.
No.
Any other questions? All right, thank you all.
All right, y'all, the last speaker that we have from the city is Director Tammy Jackson with Safety and Permits.
Hi, Tammy.
I'll keep it up. I hope that's okay. Again, I am Tammy Jackson, the Director of Safety and Permits. Maybe I should take the mic and move. Y'all are looking at me moving. Yeah. Sitting target. The Department of Safety and Permits currently has about 99 employees, which is great. This time last year, I want to say we had probably about 70 or something like that. And tonight, Dan McNamara, he apologizes. He is the chief zoning official. He has been in that role approximately 60 days, but Dan has worked for the city for over 20 years in the law department. We both came from the law department. And so as the chief zoning official, one of the things I can tell you that Dan, this was a priority for me, and I made it a priority for him, is to think about unique strategies with doubles to dorms. And one of the things implemented on permits is a zoning inspection. So generally you have different inspections like a rough-in, a general inspection, or electrical inspections and mechanical inspections to get the certificate of occupancy. So he's implemented, actually it was a zoning administrator, Wheeler, that administered a zoning review. So that's even afterwards, because I know a lot of you call us and you say, yeah, that's their MO, we know it's their MO, but they want a library, a dinner, playroom, okay, that's what it is, right? Or 2 kitchens, and we tell them they have to take it out. We're currently, like there's one I think in the 7200 block of Booth, I think, where their certificate of occupancy is held up because they started the application with 2 kitchens, and we say you can't have 2 kitchens. So we're making sure that they're not just taking out the stove or taking out the appliance, but after we inspect, they just go push a stove in. We're making sure that the gas is cut off, that the kitchen, that is removed from under the house. We don't want to see the fixtures so they can easily replace those appliances. So we're, we know how they get around every time, and we are being reactive because Councilmember Jeruso tried his very best, but we knew it was going to be hard with doubles to dorms, trying to define family for non-related people, and how do you really enforce that? At a time like this, you go knock on their door and say, oh, is that your cousin on your mother's side or your father's side? I mean, so it's really hard to enforce that. So we are doing, trying new strategies like the zoning inspection before you get your certificate of occupancy. So I know in the news you hear about third-party inspectors, and some of those third-party inspectors give us inspection results where we can't review fast enough, or we can't review at all. We need to do our own inspection because there are obviously things missing, and it might not even be that property. So that's a whole nother story. But open for your questions. I wrote some notes too. Oh, and we do have the OIG like embedded in our offices now. They're going through to try to say, they say they can't tell us what to do, but they're making suggestions about what we should be doing. Like we're looking into contractors, looking into third-party inspectors even. And then also, we also had a contract for a vendor to do an assessment of the department, both safety and permits and code enforcement. That was Matrix, and now we're in an implementation phase. And one of the things they suggested was like a permit technician. And that is that was passed by council and civil service. It's a new position. Where now permit technicians, you'll have one person responsible for kind of shepherding you through the process, even in the inspection phase. And also one of the things, and this actually isn't implemented yet, but we're going to do it by request. We're going to ask for a permit posting violation. So if you fail to post your permit, we actually want maximum fines, like $500 for every day you fail to post the permit. Because you should have a permit, because we get calls and sometimes it's not easily found, the permit on One Stop, or they have the permit for minor renovation and we go there and they have taken apart the house, so that everybody is aware of what the scope of the permit is and what's allowed. Posting the permit should be a violation in addition to not having a permit, but right now it is not a violation. So when our inspectors go out and they don't have it posted, they can just recommend that they post it, that their neighbors, want to be aware. And that's what the permit is required. That's one of the reasons a permit is required for. Noticing your neighbors that this is ongoing work. So soon that will be a violation before the end of 2025. Any suggestions, questions? Yes, ma'am. 1220 Fern.
1223 Fern Street. The developer has had a number of issues with code enforcement, doing the things that we just mentioned, that they got a permit for something and they went in and tore walls and added and closed. But most of the research and the reporting has been based on what the neighbors provide. It hasn't been, in other words, what I see is that all documentation has been initially presented to your department by the neighbors. It's not like we call, the neighbors call on something, the inspector comes and whatever. We have had to put it all out. Now, these past 2 weeks ago, maybe, well, he cleared, it's a key lot of sorts, so he cleared that area and put down a rock driveway. And this happened like so fast, like I was there in the morning and it was fine, and all of a sudden you come back in the afternoon and the whole yard is all rocks now. And there are cars, I guess some of the apartments have been rented because there are cars parked over there. And as a neighbor, I just find myself at a loss on how to, once you make that call, once someone, and Susan Johnson is so great at doing the homework and calling and knows who to call, but at the same time, we don't see. If you look at the picture of the house in Google and you go and look now, you'll be in shock because a lot has taken place in there and it is quite a concern. At one point, we went in front of I think either zoning or whatever, and he had requested, that house had been, I think, 4 apartments. And at one point, the developer was thinking about having availability for 22 people in that building. And that is, we live in, for us, our area, we have some of our neighbors here, it's residential. There is nothing, we haven't been affected by those 2 dorms in that area. It's all, very quiet, and having a dorm, a real dorm with 22 people over there would be terrifying. And the houses are so close. in both sides, you know, it's really, we're a little lost. I don't know what's happening.
I have a violation, and there is a case that was open in 23, and we'll take it back, and I'll tell them the same concern is there, because I do see that there was a case open May of 23 about exceeding the scope, as well as increasing the number of bedrooms for the property.
Yeah, correct. And then, like I said, usually, I know that you need a permit for putting a driveway of that magnitude.
You can't park in front of the house, so that's already a violation, so I have it down.
Yeah.
And it's listed as 1225 is the municipal address. It may be a double, but it's at the municipal address.
It's 1223 actually.
1225 Fern Street, owned by the Copy Lawyer LLC. Pardon?
It says 5 on the door, but it's 300. You may be right.
Right, it's the municipal address we go by?
Oh, okay.
Yes,
You
ma'am,
see
so
this
it's
over here?
1225, yes, ma'am.
Look at the trees, one under the door, that is a parking lot.
Okay, and that would be a violation that zoning would, but we go by the municipal address,
Okay.
even if it's a double,
I
you
think
would
it's
look,
4 apartments there.
you would, even if it's, but it's
Yeah.
the municipal address is only one address, and it's based on the assessor's office, so
Okay.
it's 1225 Fern, so I have that. Yes, ma'am.
Similar neighborhood, 1200-02 Short Street is a double two dorms. When we bought our house, there were 3 parking spaces, 2 in the front, and the backyard was used for parking. Now there's 1 parking space. There are 4 bedrooms upstairs. They added a 5th bedroom, and there's 1 bedroom down in another apartment. And so oftentimes they're, you know, it's near Conseco's and Fidelity. There's no parking around, and St. Andrews. So often our driveway is blocked.
Yeah, that's a mess.
That's a parking, that's something we call parking for,
And
blocking
the
the driveway.
backyard they're using for entertainment. They have it set up, and before it was parking, when we originally bought our house in 1970.
So the complaint on 1200 Short is there parking in the front?
There's only 1 parking spot in the front. There were.
So at the time-
The city took one out.
The city took one out, how?
Well, it's a narrow lot, so it's 30 feet. And there were 2 parking spaces. One is near a fire hydrant. Some neighbor complained, and the city took one of those parking spaces out. And they no longer park in the back, so there are 5, 6 people and only 1 parking spot.
Are you talking about on the side of the driveway or on the property?
On the street.
On the street, that's very different. That's the Department of Public Works if any parking was taken off the street. The Department of Safety and Permits, we cite private property, so it would be property owned by an individual.
This is owned by an individual.
Right, but when we're talking about the street parking, that's public.
It wasn't street parking, it was on the property itself. All 3 spots were on the property itself. You said street
No.
parking.
Right, I don't
In other words, they're not
see
parking on the
enough
property.
of the parking spots to be on the private property. I see it on the side though. Like where a fire hydrant would be, that's public. Sir?
So this is in regards to the front yard parking that we're seeing more of. There's one on the 7500 block that I reported on Butte that they came in one day, tore out the whole entire front yard and bricked the whole entire thing into a partial circular driveway. I know, I'm pretty sure there's a violation online, but what's going to happen? Are they going to be forced to take that out?
Yes, sir.
So is that in the process that's going to
Yes,
happen?
sir.
And then down the street, the 7400 block of Butte, I saw 6 cars parked in front of the house blocking the sidewalk. That was supposed to be not parking. So, you know, issues like, so that stuff's going to be taken care of.
Yes, sir. And what happens is it can be something that we have decided like every 5 years, we have to make them aware it's a violation, and so we can continue that cycle. But if there's a lapse of 5 years where they have not
They
been.
can park in their garage, for 5 years, they can do that? They-
No, sir, they shouldn't be doing it at all.
right,
It's
so-
never okay. That I am just telling you about the process and how, like, each 5 years, and I know it's been frustrating because people were saying that, okay, so there were some that were reported, they had gone on for over the 5-year period, and so now they're allowed to do it by right.
Right, okay, I see what you're saying.
But they hadn't been
Whatever.
cited,
The
right.
new people that aren't being forced to remove what they've already done, yes, that's,
It's the citation, it's the case. So if there's no case for a lapse of 5 years, like they haven't been noticed, that's where you get grandfathered.
the people, the LLC that put in the circular brick driveway that took 2 parking spots off the street for the public to use because of their own.
They'll be cited, even if they sell the property, that owner will be cited.
Are they forced to take it back out?
Yes, sir.
At what point? When?
After adjudication. Like, they shouldn't be using it at all, but it requires adjudication.
Use every single day.
Yes, sir. And so that's one of the results of adjudication, in addition to fines, removal.
On their property.
Yes.
You gotta park an RV in front of those two things.
Thank y'all so much for staying and asking Director Jackson all those wonderful questions. Thank y'all so much for having us tonight. Thank you, Mr. Bienvenu.
Thank you, Lise. Thank you so much for coming. It was way beyond what we expected. It was really amazing. Thank you so much. Look, we got a lot of food in the back. Go eat it all so we don't have to take it home. Thank you very much.